Hello everyone! In this video, I'd like to show you how you can use the new background decoration components we just released on CodyHouse, and how you can use some of the new utility classes released in version 2.6.2 of CodyFrame to customize these components. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so this is one of the examples of background decorations we have available on CodyHouse. This one is available for free. And we want to include this decoration into a simple page design. So you can pick another one if you prefer. They are all really nice, kind of abstract backgrounds. I'm going to stick with the default version. So view code, we can copy the figure element. And now let's move into our project. So I'm pasting this figure element right below my article component. So when you use these components, you want to make sure that their parent has a position relative, because the SVG, because these decorations are actually inline SVG code, they are in position absolute. So you want to add a position relative to the parent. One other thing, you want to make sure that the content has a z-index value which is higher than the one of the decoration. So in this case, I'm adding a position relative and a z-index of 2 to the content. All right, so you are all set up, and this is how you include one of these decorations. Now, as you can see, it's already taking the colors, the new colors of the project, the CodyFrame project I'm working on right now. So how do you change the color of this decoration? So if we check the code, you can see this is actually just SVG code. So each one of these elements has a fill color, and the main color of this decoration is controlled by this color utility class here. So right now we have color contrast low. If we change this to color contrast higher, for example, then the color becomes much darker. In this case, we could use also color primary, for example. So we're using now our primary color. Let's go back to color contrast low. You can also use one of the color opacity classes. So color opacity 50%, for example, is going to reduce the opacity of all the SVG by 50%. Now, let me remove this. So some of these elements in my example, they have a different color. So I'm not controlling them using this utility class right here. So, well, that's because if we look at the SVG, we have the two circles in this case that have a different color. If you want to change the color of a specific element, now remember this is inline SVG, so you can just, if you don't know which element is which, by looking at the code, you can just inspect the figure element, inspect the SVG, and then you can, hover over these elements here, and you will see which element is which. So in this case, it's pretty simple because we just have two circles, and then we have two rectangles, and obviously the colors of the circles is different. But you may have, you may find on CodyHouse some more complex illustrations, in which case it may be a little bit more difficult to find out which component should be updated in the code. So in this case, we can look for the circle elements. And as you can see, the fill color is a filter actually. Well, that's because we are using a linear gradient, and in SVG, linear gradients are applied using filters. So you can just select this radial gradient in this case here, and we can check where it's being used, and it's here. And as you can see, we have a radial gradient applied here, and with the two stops. In both cases, we have the color primary. In one of these cases, the opacity is equal to 0. So if you want to change this color, you can just, for example, change this value with color accent. I'm using now another color custom property of CodyFrame, and now as you can see, the color is a different one. But you could also just pick any kind of color, really, CSS color, and it will work anyway. So when you do so, you are overriding the color utility class used on the main element here, and you're giving to this element a specific color that you can no longer control with this utility class right here. Now, we were saying before that you can actually also make some changes using some of the new utility classes released in CodyFrame. So, for example, say you want this background effect to be on the other side, so you can apply the flipX utility class, and now the background effect is on the left. So just to show you what's happening here, so with the flipX utility class, you are applying a scaleX value of -1, which means you are flipping the element horizontally. While if you apply a if you apply a flipY value, you are flipping the element vertically, obviously. Then you can also flip the element in both directions by applying a flip transformations, a flip utility class. Okay. One other thing that you can do, which is really interesting, let me switch to another page. And by the way, this is the new e-commerce template we are almost ready to release. It's going to be the first template released by CodyHouse. Right, so I want to show you how you can use another cool utility class we just released in CodyFrame, which is the blend utility class. So we are in this page now. So we are always looking at the decoration element, okay? In this case, we are controlling the color using always the color utility class with an opacity of 30%. But now, no matter the value you pick for the opacity, we could decrease it to maybe 10% to make it subtle. The color is always going to look a little bit dull. And this happens all the time when I'm using, for example, dark colors on soft light backgrounds. So that's why we have decided to introduce new utility classes, the blend utility classes. So let me show you an example. If you use blend overlay on this one, now the color, it's blending with the background color underneath. So if, for example, we were to change the data theme of this element from light 1 to light 2, for example, now you can see now it's still blending. So the color of the illustration is always the same, but it's blending now with a different color. Now, if you're not familiar with the blending concept, well, in Photoshop, it's something which is used quite often. So if you check this image here, normally it would look like that. But if we want this image to blend with the background color, we can just pick one of the blending modes, darken, multiply, color burn, overlay, and this is how you achieve this effect. Now in CSS, we have a property to do something similar, which is the MixBlendMode, I think. Let me check. It's the MixBlendMode, right? So MixBlendMode is just like the effect we were looking at before in Photoshop. So you can set different values, for example, multiply, overlay, and for now, these are the only two values that we are including in the framework. And then you can use our utility classes or just use them in CSS to blend the color of something with the underneath background. So it's really cool to use them in combination with the decorative SVG effect, because you can really control the final feel, the final look of the decoration. That's all, and thanks for watching.